Here.
Councillor Stevens?
Here.
Council President Akkerval?
Here.
Councillor Lehan?
Here.
Mayor Knapp?
Here. Would the audience please rise and join us in a Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council, I'd be open to a motion on order of agenda.
Your Honor, I move that we approve the order of agenda.
Thank you. We're working off an amended agenda due to all the unscheduled events tonight. All in favor, please say aye.
I'll second.
All right. Second and a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Bringing us to communications. Don't have form, let's see, nothing really formal under that section. We've been doing communications all night here so far. Let's go straight into citizens' input and community announcements, which is an opportunity for visitors to address council on things that are not on the agenda. Also a time to address things that are on the agenda but not scheduled for public hearing. Staff and council will make every effort to respond to questions raised either before tonight's meeting ends or as soon as we can thereafter. We do ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes, and we've got a little green light, yellow light, red light to give you an idea where you are in that process. I have an elected official that I would like to give an opportunity to speak first. Our State Representative Courtney Neron. Welcome.
Good evening. I am Courtney Neron, State Representative, and my address is on the record. I'm here tonight as State Representative, but also as a community member in Villebois and a friend of someone who lost their home. Really wanting to thank all of the firefighters, all of the first responders, for all of their efforts. We had Lake Oswego Fire Department, Canby, and Aurora Fire Districts here, and of course, Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. And seeing them in action last night, saving structures, was incredible. And I've never seen anything like it, but always have had that deep appreciation for their work, and seeing it takes that appreciation deeper. But I also want to thank all the heroes throughout the community, people spraying neighbors' roofs when burning material landed on it, spraying lawns when there was burning material landing on it, people knocking on doors, making sure their neighbors were waking up, people driving through the streets honking their horns, setting off their car alarms so people could wake up. The natural gas guy we did see turning off the natural gas, and all of the people that cleaned up the following day. There were a lot of heroes in this story. And then also finally, just wanting to urge people to connect with their family, their roommate, their neighbors, and make that emergency plan, because I think we saw how fast a fire like this can move and how quickly we need to be prepared to leave our homes just in case. So having that go bag, knowing where your pet carriers are, having a meeting place. And just in closing, I'm so thankful and proud to be a member of this community, and so thankful for all of the responders in this event. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have one other quasi-elected, Christy Thompson. Maybe you could come forward. Or hoping to be elected, I guess.
Thank you, council members, for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Christy Thompson, and I'm running for position 4 on the Westland-Wilsonville School Board. As a former high school biology teacher at Hillsborough High School and a mother of 3, I have always been passionate about education. For more than a decade, I have been active in the Westland-Wilsonville schools my children have attended. I have coordinated teacher and staff appreciation lunches at Athey Creek Middle School and Wilsonville High School, volunteered in the high school library as well as the chemistry workroom, helped with blood drives, worked more than 200 hours in the concession stands at Wilsonville High School, and served 4 years on the Wilsonville High School Booster Club, the last 2 years as president of that club. Recently, I've also worked as a substitute teacher in our district and have gained a unique boots-on-the-ground perspective of what goes on in our schools. During the 2017-18 school year, I was the Wilsonville High School parent representative on the superintendent's high school study group. I worked alongside district administrators and high school principals and teachers. We visited nearby high schools and researched what the next Westland Wilsonville High School should look like. It was this experience that proved to be the tipping point in my pursuit of a seat on the school board, as it reignited my passion for students, for teachers, and education. I'm excited to bring my passion for education to our school board. I intend to advocate for smaller class sizes, better support for teachers battling disruptive behaviors, mental health support in each school, increased parental involvement in curriculum choices, and more career and technical opportunities. I understand the budget challenges that all school districts are facing. In fact, I just came from the work session for the school board where they're discussing their budget right now. And that is why I've begun researching how to accomplish the above goals without additional funds. What can we do to partner with our community to provide mental health options in our schools? With what businesses and unions can we collaborate to provide more hands-on work experience for our students? I look forward to having the opportunity to serve on the school board and make these goals a reality. I would appreciate your support in this election. Again, thank you for the opportunity to introduce myself to you this evening.
Thank you very much.
And I don't know if I can pass these out to you guys or not.
Probably not at this venue this way.
Okay.
Mr. Paul Rummel, please.
I'll make mine brief. Members of the council, Your Honor, Honorable Mayor, I want to thank every one of you guys. You've built an amazing city with an incredible response team. So Wilsonville is very thankful that, Villaba is very thankful that you had a cleaning crew out right away early in the morning, and you clean up very, very well. So, thank you for that. But I've been kind of I spearheaded an effort to receive contributions, in-kind contributions of blankets and toiletries and things like that. And the collection point is Quench. They've become inundated. The hearts in our community are open, but the contributions at this point, we need to have them stop. But there are other ways you can give. There is a benefit tomorrow being hosted by Lux Sucre. You can go to their website to find out more information about that. And there is a GoFundMe that's been set up by, it's also on the Villaba website, so you can research that. But thank you for all the work you've done, and thanks for the unity in the community, the sense of community that we've got in Wilsonville. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Tamara Lutz? Okay.
My name is Tamara Lukes, and my address is 11738 Southwest Valencia Lane. My home was one of the total losses due to this fire. I just wanted to comment about the sprinklers. I'm under the impression, based off of the inspection, that my sprinklers did go off. So I'm not so sure how that would have made a difference or not.
The reason I was asking is just generally on the sprinkler performance. They're not designed to stop a fire that is coming at the building from the outside. They're designed to stop a fire if it starts inside the house. But I'm just curious how well they performed in terms of going off when the heat was in the building.
Well, and I think that's sort of one of the biggest concerns that we have is the size of the structure that was built across the street. When you have small 2-story homes that's facing a 4-story structure that catches on fire, I'm amazed that there are homes that did survive across the street. I'm sorry, it's very upsetting to sit here and talk about my home that was just burnt down. I think it's negligent to have a building that tall in a community like ours. I think that if you had a home across the street from our homes that caught on fire, a home, this would not have happened. But instead, you have in a residential community setting a 4-story giant apartment complex that bellowed embers against my window that gave me essentially 3 minutes to get out of my home. And I did lose a life. I lost an animal. So that is very upsetting to me. I think that there needs to be consideration on what we are putting in our community, not just the dollars being made, but how it's impacting our community. Putting a building that size, again, is going to clog up our streets, already worse than they are clogged up. There were speculations, I don't know, that the fire trucks couldn't get through in a timely fashion to be able to address a 3-alarm, I don't know what that means, but it's significant, a 3-alarm fire in our community. They were trying to get access to the fire hydrants. That's unacceptable. We are Villebois within Wilsonville, Oregon. I'm from Chicago. I would expect that there, not in Wilsonville. So something needs to be seriously looked at as far as the size of the structures we are putting in this community that we all love and cherish so much, because this should not have happened to my home. That's it.
Thank you. Michael Bell, please.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Michael Bell. My address is 11734 Southwest Valencia Lane. We're the very last house that got taken by the fire. I just want to take the time to appreciate the fire department, the police department for their efforts to put out the fire. But as piggybacking off of what Tammy said, I was the first person that actually saw the fire start before that whole building was engulfed in flames. I woke up at 12:49, saw the orange light outside my curtain window. As I opened the window, I saw the entrance to that building that's being built, small little fire. And as I attempt to call 911, the line was busy. I couldn't possibly fathom that somebody, 1 million people, would see that small fire start. As I tried to get my husband out of the house, I went all over the neighborhood, tried to knock on all of their garage doors to try to wake them up. Anybody would do the same. As I went back to our house to make sure my husband is out, I experienced what is it like to be in hell, as I see my living room window engulfed in flames. As I got out of that, I took a video of how high the fire was before the fire department got there. There was no fire, there was no water. As what she said, fire departments had a hard time going inside our community because of congestion. If there was congestion of the cars wasn't there, I think the fire would have put it out a little better. Our home was the very last house that they attempted to put out. They were able to put out Tammy's house out. We were hoping that our house would be put out, but it still got engulfed in flames. Flames got put out till 4:15 a.m. in the morning. And me and my husband has been running on 1 hour sleep, traumatized and cannot sleep at night. I keep telling everybody, if anybody had strong prescription Ambien, I really need it. I really need to go to sleep. But the congestion is a big issue here. You cannot have 1 million cars in a community like that, because it impedes the functioning, efforts of the fire department or the police department. This is what caused and what took our home away from us, displaced us. Now we have to live somewhere else from a home that we built from the ground up, that we saw ourselves live for the next 5 years. So any development that's coming up in the future, I would love for you guys to consider putting up any of these buildings up and consider the congestion of parking. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jason Downs, please.
Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Jason Downs. I live at 11529 Southwest Zurich. I didn't suffer any losses in the fire, but I did want to give my comments. The recent conflagration in Villaba really underscores the lack of forethought being put into development within the neighborhood. There is no security to the point that residents have video recordings of roving bands of thugs attempting to break into vehicles. There's no planning. The narrow side streets are so full of cars at night that they become virtually impassable for a large vehicle, let alone a fire truck. And for buildings to be so very close together, there needs to be much better fire protection in the area. Station 52 is only 1.4 miles from the center of Villaba, but the fire was already spreading, excuse me, by the time the first engine arrived on scene. The city council must put a moratorium on new construction, including any already permitted, until safety issues within the neighborhood can be addressed. And lack of parking is most definitely a safety and security issue. Stop placing developer profits above the lives of city residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick Rechtenwald, please.
My name is Patrick Rechtenwald. I live at 12158 Southwest Palermo in Villaba. Thank you for this time to speak with you. I'm new to Wilsonville. My wife and I recently sold our home in Oregon City, Oregon, and purchased a home in beautiful Villaba neighborhood. We love Villaba, and it's a neighborhood full of wonderful people. There always seems to be something going on in our neighborhood: craft fairs, trivia nights, community gym facilities, basketball, kids playing, the smell of barbecue, and neighbors talking to each other. Everyone seems to really enjoy their life, and we're so happy that we get to raise our kids in such a wonderful place. At some point, though, there must be a point in time where it becomes a finished product. And I've recently read proposals for large complexes being built without enough parking spaces provided for the residents of the unit. Cramming in a few large complexes without requiring at least one parking space per unit seems like an irrational decision by the city. I would encourage any of you to walk through the Villaba neighborhood when you're off duty at around 6 or 6:30 and take a look at the parking situation. Parking, it already seems to be at a premium. For almost a decade, the city of Portland allowed these vertical housing development zones to go up all over the city, and sometimes not requiring one parking space at all. I guess their thinking was that by making parking difficult, that it would drive more people to rely on their sophisticated public transit system that they've had in place for decades. And I guess that thinking makes sense. But it's backfired on the city. The city of Portland has since backpedaled a bit, and a large majority of new construction now has either on-site or underground parking facilities. Now take our city. Wilsonville doesn't have a huge public transit infrastructure, and furthermore, I'd say that Villaba has very little. If the city's considering several additional large-scale complexes and giving a large tax break to a developer or developers of these vertical housing development zones, it should also consider a requirement of at least one parking space per unit. If that's not a possibility, then maybe it's not the right fit for the neighborhood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Paul Souls, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Paul Souls. I'm a Wilsonville resident over by the high school. And after all these horrible testimonials of what happened up the fire, it's like I'm on a different track. But the reason I'm here tonight is that I've seen a lot of kids here in Wilsonville riding around without bicycle helmets, and I've seen people ride the wrong way in the bicycle lane. I've almost hit one the other night driving up by the high school in the wrong way in the bike lane, all wearing all black with one little tiny light on. I almost pulled right out in front of them. And even though the City of Wilsonville Police Department is going to be very busy with the investigation here with the fire, maybe in the next month or so, once things have calmed down, I'd like to see them do targeted patrol up by the high school for speeders, for kids without bicycle helmets, for people going the wrong way in the bike lane. Last year, I was riding down by the car dealerships on the other side of the city, legally in the bike lane during daylight hours. A guy came up in the wrong lane, wrong way on the bike lane. I had to swerve out around him, almost got hit by a truck. This is a very serious thing for me. And also, the kids riding around without bike helmets around the apartment complexes scare the crud out of me, because the fact that any resident there backs up and hits one of these kids, they're going to be held liable for it, and it's not their fault, because these kids' parents didn't make sure they had a bike helmet when they went outside to play. So I like to save a life and try to get that out there, and see if we can maybe do that this summer and do some targeted patrols around the high school and the elementary schools and before school stops, so that these kids are brought aware that how dangerous it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our chief is here, so I'm sure he's hearing your testimony, and we'll have to see how we can work with that. Kara Renfro, please.
Greetings, Council. Hello. Sorry to be reading my statement off my cell phone. My printer was rebellious this evening. The high density and unrealistic planning of the Villebois community has harmed residents. The best interest of those of us who live in Villebois have not been taken fully into consideration. There is a plan to add more apartments around the Piazza area without appropriate parking accommodations or consideration of how it will severely congest an already overly developed community. There are major safety concerns, parking concerns, traffic and pedestrian concerns, and privacy concerns associated with this project that will make it a risk and not a reward for our community. We demand alternatives. We demand that our welfare and desires be not only taken into consideration, but acted upon. There are other options that will provide a higher quality of safety and a higher quality of life for those who reside in Villebois. Residents feel that our voices are being ignored. We feel that we are given a trite excuse of master plan, which is dismissive and insensitive. The master plan should not be unyielding or stationary. We can adapt it to fit the needs and the safety of the residents rather than just the needs and the interests of developers. Our concerns are valid and deserve a response that ensures the prosperity of this community rather than the prosperity of developers and other invested parties. You have the capacity and the responsibility to do what best serves Villebois. That looks like adjusting the proposed apartment plan to one the community agrees to and is satisfied with. That's the end of my statement. I still have a little bit of time, so I was going to say a few other remarks that I had written down as the meeting was progressing. And I don't want to be presumptive and speak on behalf of every single person, a resident of Villebois, but I can confidently say that I've had enough conversations and interactions with residents to communicate that there's a huge sense of frustration with how development is proceeding in the community. You have an extremely overly dense, populated area, and it seems that what is being put to the forefront is developer interest. It's how much money, how much people can we cram in without consideration of quality of life? Is this realistic? How do we maintain this vision of this lifestyle within this community? And it's impacting safety, and people are extremely frustrated. They're angry. I feel like this fire kind of has once again brought up that issue. You constantly see more and more housing being put up without forethought. And as another resident said, the negligence of that, that's what it feels like. That's our perception from a community's perspective, is they don't have our best interest at heart. They have money at heart. They have how can we cram in as many people. And so that is very disconcerting as a resident. That is it feels like we aren't being looked out for. There's a lot of issues with this new proposal going forward, and we ask that those issues be examined, that the community has accurate input to something that satisfies us with that project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all of the speaker cards I've received. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak at the dais up here? Okay, we need to have you fill out a card as soon as you're done if you would like to speak. No, come speak first and, yeah.
Hi, my name is Carrie Hansen. I live at 11131 Southwest Barber Street. I'm probably one of the main residents that gets to hear all the police officers and emergency cars that go up and down because I'm right on the circle. There are plenty going on. And as I walk around with my dog and my children, I do see that all the new developments, the streets are getting smaller and skinnier, and I totally agree. I don't know how these emergency vehicles can get through when my minivan has a hard time even going through the new developments with how small and skinny the streets are getting. We have lived there a year and a half. We are recent transplants, and our real estate agent and a lot of the other residents from the area are like, we love this area, it's great, and it is. It's a great school system. We came here for the Spanish immersion, so on and so forth. But as we live there, I'm finding out that what we were told Villaba was is not happening anymore. We wanted a community that we could walk along and enjoy. We can with the parks and stuff, but we don't have the coffee shop that we are kind of told, or the little shops, the estate homes to kind of keep the values median ranged. The apartment buildings, I totally agree, are not safe. You can't do huge buildings along a residential neighborhood. That just takes away the view. I loved going to the park and seeing Mount Hood, and now it's getting totally blocked with all these huge buildings. And as a family member, a mom, a wife, a neighbor, it really takes away me wanting to stay there. And I've heard so many others in the real estate community also saying what's happening is affecting and is going to affect the prices of all the homes in the area. So if we could please, I totally agree, take a step in the right direction of safety and the growth and the community involvement. Really, if you want us as a community residents to be involved, I want to be able to get out of the house and go walk to a coffee shop. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So I've heard several comments pertain to the emergency response capability by the fire department. I wondered if the fire chief would be interested in providing clarity on his perspective about whether they experienced that inability to move through the streets or the traffic.
And the hydrant access was the other one.
The height of their access.
The hydrant access.
Oh, the hydrant access, yeah.
I've sat through this meeting tonight, and I was in a community meeting earlier, and I hear a lot of pain, and there was a lot of loss with this. It's not the first time that I've dealt with it or heard it. First time in my neighborhood that I've heard or dealt with it. But I can only speak to what I know from last night. And I have heard zero reports of any issues with access or egress for any of the fire engines or trucks that responded to the fire in Villaba on March 31st. I double checked with the incident commander to make sure I wasn't missing something or a missing report. And again, they reiterated, we didn't have any issues with hydrants. We didn't have any issues setting up our trucks exactly where we wanted to place them. I heard nothing from the crews the next day that they had an access problem. We came in, we took hydrants, we marched down the streets, and they put fire out on their left and on their right. And they protected the houses as best they could to keep it from going any further. So I don't know where the reports are coming from of anything other than that, but I've heard absolutely nothing. Quite the contrary, we got where we needed to get to as fast as we could. So that's all I can say.
Okay, thank you. Anything further that we should hear from staff, Ms. Troa, or we're kind of at the end of the community input section of council unless you want to make any further notation here?
No, I don't think that I've got anything else to share at this juncture from staff. I just want to say that I appreciate all of you that came forward and expressed your concerns. I'm sorry for those of you that lost your homes. That's got to be devastating. So thank you for stepping forward. Thank you for being so honest, and thank you for providing some really good input and things for the City Council to consider as we kind of move forward. I know the City Council takes all of your comments very seriously, and so I appreciate that you took the time to come here, and I think the rest of the council does as well. So I just want to say thanks to all of you.
And we will have an opportunity for a community meeting tomorrow night. We just have to finalize the details. So if you would like to come to that, please stay tuned. All right, we will proceed then with the rest of our meeting. If people wish to stay or don't wish to stay, you're welcome. We'll give you a minute or two if you want to move on with your evenings to something else.
Wow. God. No fun.
So we would like to proceed with the rest of our meeting. If you're in a conversation, if you could please carry it on outside, and we will go ahead with the business portion. I'd like to invite Ms. Monahan to come forward to talk about the Volunteer Appreciation Proclamation. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This evening, I am here with our Volunteer Appreciation Proclamation. I believe the mayor has a few words to talk about our volunteers. As you know, we have our Volunteer Appreciation event coming up on April 16th, so we can acknowledge the folks that give to our community. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Maybe you and I should have a little dialogue about the volunteers here. I mean, sure. Do we know how many volunteers there are in our community?
I believe there's about 3,000.
Official volunteers.
Official volunteers with the city, about 300, probably more. They work in a number of capacities through different departments with the city, whether it be our library, the community center. They work with Public Works as well as SMART. Our home delivery program is a popular one through the community center. And there are also volunteers that work at the community center to serve lunch. So there's a number of different volunteers that serve our community in a number of capacities, as well as those folks that serve on boards such as yourselves throughout the community. Yeah, boards and commissions we have lots of. We have development review boards, and we have the planning commission, and we have the library advisory board, and the parks and rec advisory board, the community enhancement committee. What else? Trying to remember these off the top of my head, but there are numerous ways in which we use volunteers. In fact, this city is somewhat special in the extent to which we ask people to come share the work with us, and we benefit hugely as a community from all that work that happens. So it is very
gratifying always to see the level of engagement by our citizens. We always invite people to come forward, and if they're interested, to throw their name in the hat, and we'll see if we can find a place that they can contribute that way. It makes a big difference. So, as you say, we're going to have a formal recognition for our city volunteers on April 16. I could read the proclamation.
That would be wonderful.
Okay. 2019 as Volunteer Appreciation Month, whereas the month of April is recognized as the time to appreciate the hard work, dedication, and passion of volunteers throughout our nation. And whereas government alone cannot meet all the nation's needs, so we partner with businesses, faith-based organizations, nonprofit organizations, and individuals to really make a difference. And whereas citizens who volunteer their time provide assistance which cannot be measured in terms of just dollars, volunteers provide a spirit of helping that multiplies in value when each citizen reaches out to assist another. And whereas volunteers throughout the city of Wilsonville donate their time in a wide variety of human service programs such as literacy, delivering meals to the homebound, especially seniors, teaching our children, planting trees, tending gardens, caring for others. And whereas citizens also donate their time in helping the city of Wilsonville through their service on City Council, Planning Commission, Development Review Boards, Library Board, Parks and Rec Advisory Board, the Budget Committee, as well as various other task force. Whereas volunteers will be recognized at a Volunteer Appreciation Dinner on April 16th. And whereas by volunteering and recognizing those who serve, we can promote partisanship, understanding, and compassion in our community. Now, therefore, I, Tim Knapp, as Mayor of City of Wilsonville, do hereby proclaim April as Volunteer Appreciation Month in the City of Wilsonville and urge my fellow citizens to volunteer where you can and in the community throughout the coming year. So, thank you for bringing that forward and reminding us how we are graced and benefit so much by our citizen volunteers.
Can I make a comment?
A comment? Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks. So I just want to acknowledge that, at least in years past, and I'm sure it's still true, that at the library, there are so many volunteers at our library that it equals 10 to 11 full-time staff. And that has been consistent over the years. Is that still pretty accurate, you know?
I'm having trouble with the mic tonight. Yeah, that's accurate. We have a significant amount of volunteers at our library that put in countless hours, and it certainly offsets the number of FTEs, and we rely heavily on them. So you're absolutely correct in that data.
I think that's remarkable. You know, over 10 full-time people that we would have to pay to do some of the work at the library, just done through volunteer work. I also think it's important to, because of this Volunteer Appreciation Month, it's the Volunteer Appreciation Dinner, the annual dinner is being held. It was going to be in my announcements, but I think this is a more appropriate time. I think it's April, I don't have the date. I think it's April 16th, that's right, 16th, you knew that, 16th, at 5 p.m. at the Holiday Inn. So we acknowledge those volunteers every year with a dinner and some entertainment, and usually remarks from the mayor. So thank you, thanks so.
Thanks very much. Bringing us then to a recognition of our city's 21st consecutive year as a Tree City USA with some special comments. Our planner, Mr. Charlie Sow, is it? So, okay. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Knapp and members of the City Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity here tonight to talk to you about something that's very important to our city's quality of life, and that's our urban forest. And so I have the distinct privilege today to present that our the city's 21st Tree City USA Award. So we have been receiving this award for 21 years in a row, and that's a huge accomplishment. And this year is also the year we received our 10th Tree City USA Growth Award. And because as a result of that, we have received an additional certification as a Sterling Tree City USA, and that award is in that award display case outside. So lots of award to be proud of. And before Mayor Knapp reads the Arbor Day proclamation, I just want to give a quick overview of our Tree City program, and to just give a brief history of what this program means. The Tree City USA Award is sponsored by the Arbor Day Foundation and administered in Oregon by the State Department of Forestry. And this year, there are 66 cities in Oregon that received this award. So we're one of the 66 communities. And the Tree City USA designation was really designed to encourage communities to put in more care in their urban forests by giving recognition to communities that meet 4 basic standards. And those 4 are, 1, the formation of a tree board or department. And so in our case, that's administered through, mostly through the planning department. And 2, a local ordinance on tree preservation and maintenance. 3, a community forestry program with an annual budget of at least $2 per capita. And every year, since I've been working here, we have exceeded that amount by a multiple of times. And 4, an Arbor Day observance and proclamation, which is part of the agenda tonight. And a community that has received 10 Growth Award is recognized as a Sterling Tree City USA. And the Sterling communities within this program are regarded as leaders in community forestry and are considered as innovators in this aspect. And we received this year's Growth Award based on 3 different areas that we have improved upon. And that's 1, we have expanded our dedicated budget for the maintenance of our urban forests, and it's increased by $22,000 compared to last year. So it's a significant increase. And we have developed a program to enhance wildlife habitat through the Bee Stores program, which I believe is championed by Carrie Rappel, the Natural Resources Manager. And we also have approved and developed and planned new parks, which involve major tree plantings, projects such as the Backman Trail and the new parks and green space that will be provided in the Frog Pond West neighborhood. And Arbor Day itself is a nationally celebrated event, and which is for promoting the planting of trees. In Oregon, this observance actually goes for an entire week, so we have Arbor Week instead of Arbor Day. And that's typically the first calendar week of April, so we're in it right now. This year, we're making this special occasion not only by reading the proclamation, but also hosting a state heritage tree dedication ceremony in Memorial Park on Friday, April 26th at 2 p.m., which I know Councilor Lehan has a significant involvement in that event. And the 2 trees that will receive the designation carries the marks of this community's history. And with that, I will hand over the microphone to Mayor Knapp for the proclamation.
Thank you. One thing not mentioned that I will mention is that this council, championed by Councilor Lehan, has also worked with staff pushing forward a tree canopy study and looking at opportunities where we can increase tree canopy, especially with regard to replacement of missing or never planted street trees throughout our community, and we're looking forward to that process kicking off in a way that makes sense, starting with a kind of a pilot project, see if we can get a few hundred trees planted and see how it goes. So there's always one more thing to work on that, you know, goes toward the same goal. So I will read the proclamation. It's always kind of interesting from the historical perspective. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and indeed across the world. And whereas trees reduce erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heat and cooling costs, moderates the temperature, cleans the air, produces oxygen, and provides habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas Wilsonville has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting practices. Now, therefore, I, Tim Knapp, as Mayor of the City of Wilsonville, urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I encourage all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. April 1st, 2019. So thank you very much for bringing that forward to us.
Thank you.
Can I mention one thing?
Certainly. Councilor Leahan.
And excellent report. The only thing I would say also on behalf of the city of Wilsonville that makes our urban forest as healthy as it is our aggressive position on undergrounding utility lines. Mm-hmm. And you notice that when you visit other cities near us that will remain unnamed, and you see how limited their urban forest is, or their street trees are, due to the overhead wires. They end up butchered up or cut down or whatever. And we get these full canopy trees because we have worked very hard through much of the city to get so many of our overhead wires underground.
Yes, yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Councilor Leahan, and I would also want to elaborate on that. That's with the undergrounding of utility and our street tree program, planning staff and really the entire community development staff, when we do a residential development review and when we review permits for housing construction, that's a element that we always look for. That is, not only we want to make sure that street trees are planted with development, but we also want to avoid that conflict that comes from trees and the underground utilities. So that is something that we are always deliberately looking out for.
Yeah, because of course the trees are growing underground and over the ground, and so we have to look out for them in both places.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Briefly, a couple of reports, I guess, on my meetings. I'm involved in the Metro Transportation study looking at a proposal for a 2020 transportation bond potential. In that capacity, I saw that we got the South I-5 corridor in conjunction with the West Travel Corridor for the West Side Express Service rail added to the list of considerations there. It doesn't guarantee anything because they're going to try to pare that list from 120 or 30 potential focuses down to about 20 before they bring it forward to the voters, but we'll see how that goes. I had an interesting meeting with our folks at the Smart Central, the manufacturer, the president of the manufacturer, Proterra, Electric Bus Company was here, and we had a real good dialogue for an hour and a half or 2 hours about what makes them special and the technologies that they are pushing forward. We're looking forward to the first delivery of an all-electric bus here before summer, is my understanding. They're under construction, and they do take a little while to build, but it's looking very interesting. The Transportation Committee for the 2020 bond proposal will meet again before I see you folks again. I will also have Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meeting where we're trying to coordinate the Clackamas County work with that metro process to see if we can advance some corridors in Clackamas County for consideration. And there will be discussion of the vehicle registration fee, which has now been enacted and is critical to the county being able to do the maintenance on their 1,400 miles of road within the county. There's also a component of that will flow back to the cities. We think that we would eventually see something like $400,000 to $500,000 a year coming in that we would have discretionary use of on our roads. And finally, the Clackamas County Business Alliance meeting is coming up on April 10, and they have invited State Treasurer Tobias Reed to come be a speaker. April 10, 7:30 in the morning at the Oregon Golf Club. So lots of different meetings going on. Invite the councilors to make a few comments each, if you would like. Councilor President Ackervall.
This last week on Thursday, I believe it was, I attended the Clackamas Cities Association dinner along with Councilor Stevens, where there was a presentation on the Metro Housing Bond, presentations by Metro, Clackamas County, Northwest Housing Authority as well, alternatives. And perhaps Councilor Stevens wants to talk more about that event, but I was glad to have the opportunity to attend and get some information there. But I think, of course, the largest event in my mind for this last span of time was, of course, the fire in Villebois. And, of course, many people are now back out of this room, but I just wanted to stop and make a point of how grateful I am to be part of the Villebois community and see all of the efforts by those community members the night of incredible efforts to get people out of homes and to assist in whatever way. And then the outpouring of support that's happened since. I just feel incredibly grateful to be part of that community. I think that the process that so many people are in now will take a very long time. And so I hope that we will have patience through that process. I was reflecting today on how did we get to be such a special community. I think to really have that rich fabric of connectivity between people. And it's not something that happens immediately. And I think it's something that is unique and special to the Villebois neighborhood too. And I reflected back on, I moved to Villebois in 2009, so I've been there about 10 years. And I reflected back to when I first, was looking at a home there and met somebody that was out walking the perimeter of the neighborhood, which looked much different at that point 10 years ago, and was so open and welcoming and wanted to share about that community. And that spirit is still there in Villebois now, even though it physically does look very different. That spirit of the people, I think, and their love and care for each other is still there. And it is a community that's developed over time. The many events that have been in place. We have volunteer appreciation. There's been volunteers at work doing all sorts of egg hunt, Halloween parade. 4th of July. There's numerous events that happen throughout the year that have become traditions. But there's there's been work done by people that, over the course of a decade now, some of them aren't in the community anymore. Some people have passed on. Time has changed things, but they have contributed, I think, to what we saw in action this last weekend. Their efforts contributed to the response that we saw this last weekend too. They didn't know that this was coming down the road. But it's part of what those people have done to make it a special place and to take care of each other. So I look forward to having us continue to take care of each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Stevens.
Thank you. So I will expand a little bit on the Clackamas City's dinner that Councilor Akkerval and also legal counsel Barbara Jacobson and I attended in Lake Oswego. For those of you who don't know, that it's a monthly dinner hosted by different cities throughout Clackamas County. So there's representatives all the way from Sandy, Oregon City, Lake Oswego, Wesleyan, Wilsonville, and Clackamas County representatives. There were 4 of the 5 commissioners there that night. So, and I think it was the topic that drew them in. It was about affordable housing, and the focus was on the Metro bond, housing bond that passed last November throughout the region. And so the presenters were from Metro, Clackamas County. They have a new housing authority executive director, Jill Smith. She is terrific. And then the representative from the alternative housing, I forget the name of the organization. It's a non-for-profit that helps people find housing, those in need find housing. So what they talked about is there are now 8 implementing districts or organizations, and the Clackamas County cities will be, the implementation will be the housing authority, will be done by the housing authority of Clackamas County. And it seemed like, as they were talking, it's pretty fast-tracked. Wouldn't you say? They're looking for proposals by this summer, in August, from the municipalities in Clackamas County. The goal is to create over 800 affordable housing units throughout the county, and about over 300 of those will be for people who are in extreme need for housing. They're focusing on families and looking for a variety of types of housing, even studios, and then 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, so that there's enough room to have a family in those residences. I'm trying to see what else is in my news. So anyways, I think this is something that the council has talked about on and off, but I think it's something that we need to start really paying attention to, especially since we can't have the opportunity here to leverage funds with both the bond that got passed and also through Northwest Housing Alternatives, who has a variety of different tools in their toolbox to be able to make those kinds of things happen. So it was a good talk. The people were very interested in what was going on because it's in the news every day. It's a real issue for this region, affordable housing. It was on the news again today. How many people, 25% or so of the residents in this area, are paying more than 50% of their income for housing. I mean, how are you going to do anything else? So it's something that we need to start paying attention to, I think. On another note, I also attended the library board meeting. I'm the liaison for that board, and I will tell you that board is excited because they received a community enhancement grant a couple years ago, I think, for a new sign for the library on that corner. And it was kind of put on the back burner while the wayfinding program was set up and determined, and we approved that just recently. So now they're thrilled that they are going to get their sign, and Director Pat Duke showed the board the stonework we approved and the colors we approved that will bring together all those all the wayfinding signs that will be throughout the city. So they're happy about that. And they're still working on the furniture. You know, the renovation is completed of the building, but they're still in the process of buying new furniture and deciding what types of pieces they'll get, how many, what colors they're going to be. So, and I'm also going to talk about one more thing at the library. One of my favorite things there, they have so many programs, but I love First Friday Films, and it's this Friday night, and it's the film that won Best Picture for the Academy at the Academy Awards. So 6 o'clock on Friday night. That's where I'm going. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councilor Lehan.
Yes, well, I guess as a certifiably old resident of Wilsonville, I guess my job is to give a little historic perspective to the circumstances of this last weekend. I know how devastating a fire is to someone who loses their home in a fire, because our home burned down in 1944. I don't recall that because I wasn't born yet, but it followed me all my life. And of course, that was my home here in Wilsonville. We had no fire department, not even a volunteer fire department. So the house burned down to the ground. A pile of ashes was all it was. But it impacted my family's life on through our lives, and was part of the reason that I then later became a fire inspector with the City of Vancouver, was because of my interest in the field. But just as far as background with Wilsonville, through all of my grade school, high school years, we had only a volunteer fire department. We had no paid staff, and people just ran across the street who worked at Lowry's shopping center, and they dropped everything and ran across the street to the little concrete building that had our fire engine in it. So it was, needless to say, somewhat limited fire service-wise. And then for a long time after we had paid fire department people, they were augmented with volunteers. The volunteers continued to serve along with paid people. And I'm not sure when we got to Alton Valley. Maybe somebody knows when they came to us. Now that the chief has left, I can't ask him. But this is completely different. I mean, going in just about in my lifetime from absolutely no fire department, you know, get yourself a bucket, to all volunteer, to fire department and emergency services at the level that we have them now. I mean, it really is a huge service that we have in our community. And the other thing I wanted to mention, because I don't think enough people did, was the tremendous job that Public Works did. They were on the scene right away on Sunday. I know called in without, on their day off, and they were all over the place. So if you didn't know that's what they were there for, you might miss it, because they were clear down on by next to Beckman, where that storm drain comes out, where the storm drain empties. They were up by Graham Oaks at that storm thing. They were looking at all of the things in that whole region for how they were draining, as well as pushing brooms and cleaning up the piazza. And I mean, they were everywhere, and their trucks were all over the place on all through Sunday and Monday. And so now all the Public Works people have gone away, but anyway, they did a great job.
Thank you. Councilor West.
What an intense council meeting. I was on the nursing floor at Salem Health Hospital in the middle of the night when my phone started blowing up. I'm still in scrubs. Not much sleep probably for much of us on the council, or people in the community, or those of us that live in Villabal. I'm also a Villabal resident. I loved hearing Councilor Ackervall's story about when she moved here, because I was like, that's so similar to our story. And it just is part of the story of Villabal. Paul was working at night, and I was here visiting friends that we had close connection to. Our families traveled together, and I was at the farmer's market. I had a couple beers at the beer garden there, having a great time. Some of our best and closest friends. And I bought a house that night. And I called Paul on the phone. I was like, I think I'm writing an offer on a house. And he's like, how many do you have? I said, we'll talk about that later. But it was one of the best decisions our family has ever made. We moved on Palermo Street, and then now we have recently moved into our second home in Villabal. We even looked at other neighborhoods, which are beautiful in the community, but we stuck in Villabal. And we moved, those friends that we were visiting that night, we moved right next door to them. So it is traumatic for the whole community to go through what we just went through. And I am so overwhelmed and blessed by the response of all the neighbors. And I know that's been said over and over again. And also the professionals and the people that are invested in this city, that work for this city. And the communication and the coordination is no small feat. And once again, I don't know if other communities could have pulled off what we pulled off. And it is no shy of a miracle that we did not have a loss of life. And thank God we didn't. So with that said, I know we're all looking forward to try to make this better, to do what we can as a council to show leadership and to hear the voices. I am so grateful for the truth and the bravery of the people who just lost their home to come sit before us. I don't know if I could have given that testimony. Everything else right now in my life seems very insignificant compared to what they just shared. And that's even without a loss of life. And I am very thankful that they're my neighbors, because they show such a fortitude and a character that we don't often see. And I'm proud of them that they had the courage to do that. And I hear them, and I'm going to continue to listen to them. And I know as a council, we're looking to be responsive. Moving forward, additionally, as I've been spending a significant amount of time at the Capitol on other efforts for foster kids, I have been brought to my attention that a Senate bill that is very, very pertinent to Wilsonville has just passed out of the Emergency Preparedness Committee. Senator Alan Olson, who Charbonneau is in his district, passed that out of his committee. This bill would be looking to expand auxiliary lanes and to begin to deal with seismic structure and issues within the Boom Bridge. And this is something that I hope everybody will be in our community will be watching and going to their legislature and committee hearings and paying attention to. I've met with Senator Olson, Senator Thatcher, Senator Girard, Courtney Neron. I popped by Representative Alonzo Leon and others in the Capitol to make sure that this issue is forefront on their radar. It looks like Senator Breyer out of Transportation Committee in the Senate is going to bring this up for a hearing. I hope that in our full force of activeness and activity that we support Senate Bill 1021 so that we don't have to wait till 2040 to have this issue addressed. It's exciting to see this move forward. It's unexpected. It's our #1 legislative agenda, and I didn't know if we'd even thought that it would even get this far, that we'd even be at a point where we're getting hearings on the Boom Bridge. It's not necessarily the entire county's first priority, but it is Wilsonville's. I know it's mine, and I know it's Courtney Neron's ask to the Speaker of the House, so there is movement on this. So I hope we all pick up our phone and advocate to the legislators in Salem and say, when we have record revenues in Salem, let's make sure that the Boom Bridge is dealt with. So I think I've covered all my issues. So yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you. City lobbyist Mr. Leo is in the room, and I recall that he and I first pitched Senator Olson one day about considering this proposal, and it was very gratifying that he grabbed onto it and felt like he could maybe do something with it. He's in charge of seismic concerns or earthquake preparedness, in his committee, and it's great that it seems to be gaining a little traction. Okay, why don't we do some real business, if we can, starting with the consent agenda.
Resolution number 2743, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing the city manager to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Tualatin Valley Water District and the City of Hillsborough to jointly design and construct the Garden Acres Road project and Willamette Water Supply PLM 1.2 Garden Acres to 124th pipeline project. And the minutes of the November 19, 2018 council meeting.
Thank you. Is there a motion on consent?
Your Honor, I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second, we approve consent agenda as read. 2 items. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Bringing us to public hearing on ordinance number 834.
Ordinance number 834, an ordinance of the City of Wilsonville approving comprehensive plan text and map amendments and transportation system plan amendments related to the Basalt Creek concept plan and approving a comprehensive plan map amendment related to the Coffee Creek master plan.
So, thank you. So while staff is preparing, I will call to order the public hearing on ordinance number 834 as has just been read. Ladies and gentlemen, council will take public testimony tonight in a public hearing format. The hearing will be conducted as follows. First, city staff will present their report. Then we will receive testimony by proponents, opponents, and those neither in favor nor opposed to the proposed ordinance. If you wish to testify, please complete a speaker card from the counter at the side of the room, pass it forward to the city recorder. When called, come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and make your statement. I do request those providing testimony not repeat testimony already given to council. Simply indicating your agreement with certain prior testimony is entirely sufficient. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Knapp and councilors. I am Kimberly Reibold, Associate Planner with the city, and with me tonight is Scott Mansour with DKS Associates, our transportation consultant. And we are going to provide you with a brief overview of the plan amendments for the comprehensive plan and transportation system plan related to the adoption of the Basalt Creek concept plan. So just as a quick refresher on where the Basalt Creek planning area is located, it is generally on the northwest side of the city of Wilsonville, just north of the Coffee Creek industrial area. The concept planning area included 2 distinct parts, the West Railroad future study area and the Basalt Creek area. You can see on here the future Basalt Creek Parkway, part of which has been constructed, serves as the future boundary line between the city of Tualatin and the city of Wilsonville. This concept plan was adopted by the city of Wilsonville in August of 2018 and represented the culmination of a handful of years of work, both between the city of Wilsonville and the city of Tualatin in establishing a future vision for this area, which was brought into the UGB in the early 2000s for future employment uses. As a part of an agreement, the intergovernmental agreement between the 2 cities, as well as Metro and Washington County, the city must adopt these comprehensive plan amendments related to the concept plan by May 3rd, 2019. So with that, I'll just walk through what the amendments consist of. The first piece are the creation of 2 new areas of special concern within the comprehensive plan text. These areas are shown on the map here, Area M is the Basalt Creek planning area. And there is some language that has been added to the comprehensive plan to bring forward information about the land use categories from the concept plan and discuss them in a little more detail and explain where they would be applied within the Basalt Creek planning area. There's also some text linking to the transportation improvements that were identified in the Basalt Creek Transportation and Refinement Plan. And as Scott will describe, those are being carried forward into the transportation system plan as well. We've also got some language just defining the future objectives that are important for this area, such as preservation of natural resources, as well as providing multimodal linkages to the area, including trails and bicycle connections, as well as transit access. We also recommend that in the future, an implementation measure such as a form-based code, like what was adopted in Coffee Creek, be considered for this area. As for Area N, this is the West Railroad planning area, and the concept plan did not have robust land use recommendations for this area, as there are a lot of environmental constraints, and the cost of potentially serving this area, at least in the near term, from an infrastructure standpoint, is seen as being pretty great. So the thought here is just to add some language identifying these constraints and stating that future study will be needed once development starts to occur in this area to determine what the appropriate land uses might be within Area N. The next piece of this is an amendment to our comprehensive plan map, and this would add the industrial designation in 2 areas, the Basalt Creek planning area, as well as the Coffee Creek industrial area. Both of these mapping actions would be consistent with the concept plan in Basalt Creek and with the previously adopted Coffee Creek master plan for that area. The reason that we are now able to apply this to the Coffee Creek industrial area is that we are updating our urban planning area agreement, which the council adopted a resolution to do that back in March. And with the adoption of that revised UPAA, the restriction that had been placed on applying a plan designation within Coffee Creek until the time of annexation will be removed. To illustrate the future vision for this area, we will apply that designation to both pieces. We also are amending the industrial implementation measures within the comprehensive plan text to carry forward some of the basic concepts from the concept plan in terms of the creation of a high-tech employment district within this area, and also an implementation measure that would recognize one of the land use recommendations that was a craft industrial development type. This is something that we don't really have any guidance on currently in our comprehensive plan, so we wanted to carry forward a little bit of a characterization of how those uses, which could include things like smaller scale craft manufacturing of things like bicycles or distilleries or breweries, things of that nature. We also are including an industrial implementation measure to ensure that active green spaces are provided throughout these industrial areas. That is an idea that is prevalent within the Coffee Creek area as well. And so we want to include that as one of the implementation measures. So with that, I will turn it over to Scott, and he will briefly walk through the TSP amendments that are a part of this package.
Thank you again. Scott Mansour with DKS Associates, Mayor and City Council. I will just go through just a short presentation to kind of highlight the TSP amendments that are going to be required as part of the Basalt Creek amendment, the concept plan. First of all, just, what is a TSP and why do we need an amendment at this time? The Transportation System Plan is the city's long-term policy and planning document. So as land uses change throughout the city, urban growth areas are increased, there's a need to identify transportation infrastructure. And so that's really the purpose of the transportation plan, is to evaluate where's new traffic going to come to and from, and what infrastructure is needed in the future to provide adequate level of service and operations for traffic and all modes of travel within the city. One other important thing of keeping your transportation system plan up to date is to be able to compete for regional, state, and state funding. One of the first things on just about any transportation grant application is this part of your adopted transportation system plan? So just making sure with the changes with Basalt Creek concept plan that we're keeping up to date to be able to be competitive for future grant funding. Also, just making sure that we're keeping up to date with other state and regional transportation policies and growth. And finally, the TSP amendment was a requirement of the intergovernmental agreement with Washington County and the city of Tualatin. So what do we need a transportation system plan update at this time? Well, there's three things we identified with changing local conditions. The first is the adoption of the Basalt Creek concept plan. Also, the council adopted, in your current transportation system plan, there was 2 east-west connector roads identified between Boones Ferry and Brown Road. One was at 5th Street and one was at Bailey. The council adopted, and so we're just adopted the 5th Street connection. So we're just amending it to update it based on that council adoption. Third was just some jurisdictional transfers of Garden Acres, Clutter Road, and Advance Road being changed from county to city jurisdiction. Now I'll go through some of the new transportation infrastructure projects that were identified as part of the Basalt Creek concept plan. The first one is Project 1, the Basalt Creek Parkway extension. It's adding it's extending the existing Basalt Creek Parkway east of Grahams Ferry Road to Boones Ferry Road. And that's a new project, RE14. The next project, there was 2 other Basalt Creek Trail projects, one that runs north-south, north of Day Road to connect to the new Basalt Creek Parkway. And one thing just to make sure it's clear, these are just lines on a map. They're really intended to show a general area, but an alignment really hasn't been identified until you have a capital improvement project and you've done your due diligence. So there's 2 Basalt Creek Trail projects. Again, the one north of Day Road, midway between Boones Ferry and Grahams Ferry Road, and also a trail along I-5 north of Boones Ferry Road, up to in the general vicinity of the Basalt Creek Parkway. So three additional projects, widening Boones Ferry Road to 5 lanes. Right now it's three lanes. So widening that from Day Road up to the new Basalt Creek Parkway to provide additional capacity. That is project RW04. I should have mentioned on projects 1, 2, and 3, these are all financially constrained. So through that Basalt Creek process, these were identified as financially constrained projects. Project 4 is widening Grahams Ferry Road to 3 travel lanes. Really, the width of Grahams Ferry already exists out there. It's really just urbanizing, providing urban facilities along that facility and making sure it meets the current cross-section in the transportation plan. Let's see, Grahams Ferry, and then number 5, Boones Ferry, 95th Avenue right in this location, right here, to do some access management at that location and increase the capacity at that signalized intersection at Boones Ferry and 95th. Project 6 is a future extension, and these are unfunded projects, but these were projects that were identified as part of the Basalt Creek concept plan. This is the Basalt Creek Parkway overcrossing, so this would extend Basalt Creek Parkway over I-5 as a 4-lane roadway that would connect to Ellingson Road at some point to the east. And Day Road, also a Day Road overcrossing, was extending over I-5 to Ellingson Road as a 4-lane road. And again, the alignments east I-5 have not been identified at this time. Project 8 is the southbound ramp, exit ramp from I-5, and adding dual southbound right turn lanes. If you picture that intersection today, there's 2 southbound left turn lanes and 1 right turn lane. So this would be adding an additional right turn lane, adding some capacity to that ramp. And then Project 9 is the update again of the Brown Road extension alignment. So the alignment to 5th Street, and that project is currently being designed and will be constructed soon. And then I believe this is the last project. Project 10 is the Pioneer Court extension. It's extending a new road north of Pioneer Court up to, I think it's approximately 1,000 feet north of Day Road, and then connecting over to Boones Ferry Road to provide future access to development in that area, and that is an unfunded project. There's some other general amendments. These are just map changes to the current transportation plan. Updating the jurisdiction of 3 roadways, Garden Acres, Clutter Road, and Advance Road, changing those jurisdiction to prior shown as county, now being City of Wilsonville jurisdiction, and also updating the functional classification of Garden Acres and Clutter Road from collectors to a minor arterial. And the reason for those changes, through the Coffee Lake Creek concept plan, there used to be an extension of Kinsman Road to the north up to Day Road. And that was changed, and the intent was to actually use Garden Acres as that future north-south arterial. So that change is also being identified. And then the 13 and 14 is just updating. Since the last transportation system plan, the city's done a lot of roadway connections, adding bike lanes. Kinsman Road has been extended up to Beckman. Barber has been extended. So it's just really filling in a lot of the gaps in the map for roadways that have actually been constructed. And then 14 is just showing a lot of the bicycle facilities that have been built. So the maps have just been updated to show a lot of that work that's been done, just to make sure the mapping is up to date.
Thank you, Scott. So just very briefly, the next step in this process, aside from adoption of these amendments, the one outstanding piece is the final amendment of the UPAA with Washington County. They have a hearing before their Board of County Commissioners on April 16th, 2019, for them to have a hearing and vote on execution of that updated document. So with that, staff recommends that the City Council adopt the Planning Commission recommendation to incorporate these comprehensive plan amendments for Basalt Creek, along with the transportation system plan amendments and the comprehensive plan map amendments for Basalt Creek and Coffee Creek. And with that, we are happy to answer any additional questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, questions for staff? Councilor Stevens.
Yeah. So those trails that are planned for Basalt Creek, are those part of the official Tonkin Trail? Do they connect that trail that's supposed to go up through Tualatin and head north?
I don't believe those. I think these are extra. These are not part of the regional Tonkin Trail.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Other questions?
Are those the only 2 trails that are in the amendments?
Correct.
You're adding just
yes.
2?
There are a significant list of projects in the current, but these are the only ones that are being added through the amendment.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
The full Tonkin Trail is included in the current.
Current TSP.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions for staff? We've been talking Basalt Creek plans for several years now. I would take public testimony at this point. I have not received any speaker cards. Is there any member of the public would like to speak with regard to ordinance number 834? If so, we need to have you complete a speaker card, but come forward first and don't hold us up here.
Good evening again, Mayor and council members. I got one quick question. Day Road right now is in...
Please introduce yourself.
This is Paul Souls, sorry. I'm resident of Wilsonville. I've got one quick question. I drive down or ride down Day Road every day, basically, and it's in deplorable shape. When I understand this is a future plan, is there any plan to get that repaved before this happens? Because it's in really, really bad shape.
We'd have to ask city engineer maybe, or what would you like, Ms. Stroha?
Patty, do you know well, I'm going to have you come on forward, and maybe Zach too.
Mr. Weigel, yeah.
The question is about, are there going to be any improvements to the existing Day Road?
So the focus on the street maintenance for this summer is Wilsonville Road and Boones Ferry Road, and then the following next fiscal year, the plan is to start doing some improvements on Day Road and fixing some of the major potholes and some of the areas that need repaired. So
2020 then.
Yeah. Possibly as soon as next spring. Yeah. So
Okay.
2020, yes.
All right.
It's 2019, right?
The reason I bring this up is because it's like, right now, it's like you ride down that road, people are actually driving over either into the median or into the bike lane to avoid the ruts in the road on both east and westbound. And the traffic has considerably increased in the last month and a half since 124th and Basalt Creek has opened up. And so I just want to bring that to everyone's attention that I think you should move that up a little bit sooner than when you have a plan, because it's a really, really bad shape. I mean, there's really bad potholes at Graham's Ferry and Day Road, and it's to the point where it's like damaging cars, suspensions, I'm pretty sure. So I just want to bring that to your attention.
Okay, thank you.
I will also mention that our public works crews are well aware of this and try to stay on top of it as much as they can on the potholes.
Sounds like it's a challenge.
I think it's an ongoing battle.
Okay, any other testimony with regard to ordinance number 834? Seeing none, if there's no one else, I will close the public hearing. And is there any further information council would like to have from staff at this point? All right, that being the case, I will ask council, what is your preference with regard to ordinance number 834?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 834.
Thank you. Is there a second? Moved and second that we adopt ordinance number 834. Discussion?
None.
Speaks for itself.
We've been working on it a long time.
We've been working on it a long time. That's right. If no further discussion is desired, I will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion to adopt ordinance number 834, please say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thank you. Bringing us to new business resolution 2730.
Resolution number 2730, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing the City Parks and Recreation Department to assume ownership of and all maintenance responsibilities for the following neighborhood parks: Hathaway Court, Landover, and Willow Creek Parks.
Mr. McCarty.
Yes, sir. Honorable Mayor of City Council, Mike McCarty, your Parks and Rec Director. We went through this over a work session, so I'll make this brief. We have been reviewing and researching 3 parks in town: Landover, Willow Creek, and Hathaway. That one's in city property, the other 2, no, but it has been a difficult process and a very unique situation trying to see if we could help these people out. And basically the parks here are in a terrible condition, very dangerous for the kids. And we think it's in the best interest of the community that the Parks and Rec Department take over the maintenance of these parks. We would like to do so as soon as possible. And just slight bit of history and then I'll be done. These parks were dedicated back in 1999. And they were supposed to be part of it for a public park, but the HOA was supposed to be taking responsibility for these parks. At that time, there was no Parks and Rec Department, probably even on the horizon here in Wilsonville. That was a long time ago. But with the city attorney's help, we've been reviewing this and we've talked to the HOA boards. We've talked to, I think there's one property management company, and they're all on board of us doing this. The monetary amount, the budgetary problems or issues are minimal. And as I stated in our meeting earlier, we believe that we can have the playground equipment replaced with this year's fiscal budget. So there'll be new playground equipment out there for the kids out there. Bottom line is Parks and Rec staff, and I believe the entire city of Wilsonville staff believes that everybody in this town deserves nice stuff to play on. It's a great community, and we just think it's in the best interest of the community that we take these parks over. So with that, we are recommending approval of Resolution 2730, which would provide Parks and Rec the authority to take over full maintenance and management of Landover, Willow Creek, and Hathaway Parks, and to take ownership of the land that was not previously dedicated. So that's where we're at.
So the city would end up owning the land in all 3 parks and assuming future responsibility for.
They would be dedicated to us, and then we would take responsibility for them. Okay. Yes, sir.
Council, questions for staff? Sorry.
I'm not.
Council, what is your preference with regards to the proposal on Resolution 2730?
Your Honor, I move to approve Resolution number 2730.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. We approve Resolution 2730. Discussion? Councilor Stevens.
So I know your crew does a fantastic job in our parks. So this can only make things better. You know, I don't know what kind of condition those parks are in right now, but I know that our parks are in great shape, and the Parks and Rec staff work really hard to maintain them in a really high quality. There was a conversation at work session about a path that's all broken up. I wonder if it would just be better to tear that out and put in a soft path, a bark dust or whatever. Just an idea, but yeah, I just think this is a really good idea. And the most important reason is for the safety reason.
Thank you.
Because it's really important that play equipment be in good shape.
Right.
I had to manage that in my job, and you want kids to be able to be safe on those things.
Correct.
So, yeah.
And we'll look at the paths to see the best approach. And I appreciate your comments. And our parks crew is awesome. They did a great job.
Yeah,
and
great.
we hope to, and our goal is to make sure these parks are maintained at the same level as the other city parks. And we believe that is something we can obtain.
Fantastic. Thanks. Good.
Any other questions? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 2730, please say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Bringing us to Resolution 2742.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution number 2742, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing a change order with Paul Brothers, Inc. for the Memorial Park Dog Park and Community Garden Parking Lot Project.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I know you've had a long evening, so I'll try to get you through this as quickly as possible, but I appreciate your time. My name's Kerry Rappold. I'm the Natural Resources Manager, and so, yeah, I'm here tonight to present the change orders, the authorization for that for the parking lot project in Memorial Park. So just a little bit of background. The project was part of the master plan that was adopted for the park in 2015. There were a series of active and passive uses that were identified within the plan. Basically, the active uses on the west side of the park and the passive uses on the east side. The plan identified 3 phases for implementation. This parking lot project falls within that first phase on the east side. So there's a new access to the community garden as part of this project. The parking lot itself, a restroom that will be going in hopefully within the next few months. And then the relocation of the dog park that's currently to the south of Beckman Creek. This just shows you basically the design of the parking lot, which as you go out there today, you can see almost all of this in place. So there's approximately, I think, 33 parking spaces that were added with this. So the reason I'm here tonight is because you awarded a contract last September to Paul Brothers Incorporated. Whenever change orders total more than 15%, we have to take this to the council to receive your approval. And the change orders that we have exceeded that 15% amount. Basically, the change orders were for some items that were related to constructability challenges. We had a lot more soft soil than we anticipated. So there was a lot more over excavation and rock with that. There were some grade challenges that we had to deal with as we got into construction that involved a little more paving, some curb, and a rock wall. And then there was an adjustment we had to make for the electrical system based on some follow-up discussions and work with PGE. And then also as part of this project, the access is changing to Colby Lane, so there was some additional work we had to do in terms of the bridge approaches for that. And then lastly, there was some additional concrete that we did with the well house, and then a water line that had to be upsized because of a different direction we went with the bathroom that actually is going to save money for the city in terms of that restroom. So these just quickly show you some images of those change orders related to the well house here. We have to bore, we have bored under the community garden to provide that electrical connection, the rock wall I mentioned, and those bridge approaches. So with that, I'm asking you to authorize the change orders with resolution number 2742. And if you have any questions, I can take those at this point in time.
Dollar cost?
It's $131,437.67 total.
Questions for staff?
Mr.
West.
Sorry. Is that dollar figure you just gave us, that's an overage dollar figure, or is that the total cost?
No, that's
the
overage amount based on the initial contract.
Okay.
Anything else? Council, what's your pleasure with regard to resolution 2742?
I move to approve resolution number 2742.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second, we approve resolution 2742. Discussion. It'll be a very high quality amenity that is in alignment with our Memorial Park master plan and will benefit the community very soon. So it's nice to see that on the ground.
Thank you.
Councilor Akeball.
I guess not related necessarily to the proposal itself, but to the space. We didn't mention, I believe, that the community garden sign-up day is this week. It's on the 4th at 8 a.m. And I believe those spots go very quick.
They do. Yeah.
So 8 a.m. on the 4th, community garden in this space.
And so how do people sign up?
At the Parks and Rec building, correct? There we go.
Not at the garden.
No, don't go to the garden. Go to the building.
At the Parks
building.
office in the town center park.
Yeah.
Grow some fresh tomatoes. We're getting into spring, summer.
All right. We have a motion, a second. Anything else people need to know? If not, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor of the motion to approve resolution 2742, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you, sir. Bring us to City Manager Pro Tem business.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's been a long and emotional night, I think, for everybody as our community kind of grapples with this fire tragedy that occurred in one of our neighborhoods. And I just want to thank all of you for your leadership during the last couple of days. I know it's been difficult for each one of you individually, but I just want to thank you for the fact that you have signed up to be elected officials, and sometimes that's a really tough job to do. So thanks for the compassion that you showed, and thank you for just your commitment to this community. I appreciate the really nice words that all of you said about our staff. I couldn't be more proud of the wonderful employees that I get the opportunity to work with every single day. Many of them have left, but some of them are still here. So they have put in countless hours. I mentioned it earlier, our building department under Dan's leadership, our planning department under Miranda's leadership, engineering with Patty Nelson, and you met Martin Montalvo tonight, who is handling all of our public works, and Bill Evans, who's been handling a lot of our public information. So thanks to all of those folks. I'm not mentioning everybody because it's been a whole lot of folks that have helped out in this effort and will continue to help out for the next several days or months or whatever it takes to get our community back in order. So thank you. And it's 9:30.
Thank you. Any legal business?
I think you have had a long enough night, so I'll say no legal business.
All right. Council, anything further for our business tonight? If not, I'll declare adjournment at 9:36. Thank you very much.